In A3.3, they want you to annotate a diagram of the retina. And there are 3 different main cell types, and there's 2 different photoreceptors that we need to know. Let me just make this screen a little bit bigger. So we need to identify them. I'm going to talk a little bit about what they do in their jobs. But the other thing that they seem to be crazy about is they want to know which direction the light is coming from. So sometimes this seems a little counterintuitive because just to put everything in perspective, this is your back of your eye. So if you remember, we were identifying the different parts. There was the sclera, which was on the way back. Then you have this choroid, which is in between. And then you have this part that's called the retina, which we just drew as kind of like, just draw it again. So there would be the sclera, and the next layer would be the choroid, and then the next one would be the retina. And then up here would be like your pupil, and light would come in this direction. So this retina part that I drew here is all of these nerves. So there's 3 main types of nerves, and the light actually travels in between them to reach these special nerves called photoreceptors. So there's 2 different types of photoreceptors, and it's kind of easy to remember the names because it's based on their shapes. So you have cones that kind of look like an ice cream cone, right? They have a little triangle here. So these are our cones. And the other type of photoreceptor are these blue ones in this picture, and these are called rods. So they do have 2 different jobs. Cones have pigments that detect 3 different colors. I mean, there's a range of light, but basically it's 3 colors. So they pick up the wavelength of light that's red, and those are longer wavelengths. Remember, we were talking about the, I think it was, photosynthesis. We talked about red having a longer wavelength, lower energy. And in the middle, we have green. That's kind of like in the middle. And then we have blue. And those are our short wavelengths. And we're able to just have those 3 wavelengths, and based on how much of those wavelengths, the amount of light from each one of these, we can determine different colors. Like we can combine red and green and get some colors. We can combine all 3 of them. Actually, when you have all 3 of them maxed out, the color you see is white. So that's how your photoreceptors communicate the message into your brain, and your brain tells you what color you're seeing. So that's how the cones work. The rods, they do light and dark. These are the ones that are active at nighttime. You don't see a lot of color when it's dark, right? And these will give you different degrees of lightness and darkness, so you can not bump into something at the middle of the night. Also, if you notice, there are these middle neurons. These are called our bipolar cells. And the bipolar cells connect to the different photoreceptors. So they detect to our cones, and they connect. And they connect to our rods, and they end up sending a nerve impulse to our ganglions, which will eventually go to our retina. And not our retina, to our optic nerve, and then it will travel to our brain to tell us what we're seeing. So, we're going to do an activity in a little bit to see exactly how these different cones work to tell us what colors of light we're actually seeing.